Hello and welcome to the 15th video of the JavaFx application. And we are going to look at more dynamic ways of working with our calendar in this upcoming next few videos. And if you've just joined us, welcome. And if you don't know what's going on, you can watch the whole series right from the beginning, where we start this application from scratch. So in this series, we've basically built this application from scratch, and you can follow along with the videos. And if you have been watching the series, welcome back and enjoy the rest. So basically what I said in the last video is that we need to make our calendar a bit more dynamic, because we want to put a heading in which tells us which month we are displaying, and we want to have some means of scrolling through the year so we can look at other months of the year. And in order to do that, we're going to need to make our code a lot more dynamic. And I'm saying dynamic, I've just opened the main class here as well, but I mean by dynamic is that we are going to need to access some of this code in other functions within our calendar class. And we can make it a lot more dynamic together with a console that we have created inside our console package there, so that the information is used and presented in a much more of a dynamic way. And we have to do it if we want to access this information in other functions, because I want to use the BorderPane a lot in the other functions, and I can't use the BorderPane a lot in other functions because I only instantiate it in this function, and when you do that, it's not accessible to other functions. So I'm going to make it accessible to the whole class by just adding a private BorderPane up here, like we did with the local date. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to uncomment that, and we're just going to paste it up there. So now this BorderPane that we have instantiate here will now be available in all of the functions that we create within this class. Now, to make this class more dynamic, also within our whole application and using the console, we are going to need to use the main constructor of this class, which is automatically generated, but we're going to need to call it because we want to manipulate the information in that constructor, because when we call this constructor, it is not actually visible here, but whenever you instantiate a class, like we did here in the mains, and we instantiated the calendar here, it automatically generates the constructor for that class. We just don't see it, it works in the background. But we are now going to make it visible, and I'm going to use it within this class. So but before I'm going to do that, I'm going to just use the console in this class as well. So I'm going to create a private console here, like we did in the mains, and I'm just going to call it console. And that's basically what I'm going to pass through the constructor. So it's not, we don't need to pass it through all our functions that we create in this class. It is only passed through the constructor once. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to right click on a new line, because it's the easiest way to generate a constructor here. And so we're going to go to source, and we're going to say constructor using fields, and we only want to pass in the console for now. So we're going to click on generate, and there we have our public calendar constructor. We do not need the superclass for this example, and there we go. So we have now passed the console from the constructor, from the main class where we created the console, into this class, and we have set the console, this console equals that console, so that should now have all the same information in it. So what we now need to do, because we've got an error in our main class, because where we instantiate our calendar, we now need to pass the console like so. And this build calendar is no longer going to be used inside this class, because we're going to use it inside the calendar class. Now it does say still yellow there, and that is because we do not use this calendar specifically in this class. We only instantiate it here. So now if we run our application, we will find that actually nothing really happens. It only creates the console, and the obvious reason for that is because we have not actually said build calendar. And before we say build calendar, because we now start our calendar with this main constructor, I just want to take this console text out of here, which is calendar started. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to uncode that for now. I will delete it later. And I'm just going to put it here in our constructor. So if we run the program now, you will see that it still hasn't started because we haven't clicked the button. And if we start it, you can see that the constructor has started and it said calendar started. It still hasn't built the calendar because we still haven't called this function. We can now go ahead and in our constructor we can say build calendar, as easy as that. And it's giving me an error there. Oh, it's because we're still trying to pass the console here, and that is no longer necessary, so we can just take that out. See, now that error has disappeared. So and we do not need to do that because we've passed the console into our main constructor. So now if we run the code, everything should be working as it should be working. So that is absolutely correct, and it is all working in a more dynamic way, because now we can access things we create in this class. We can access them within the whole class in all the functions, and that's just how we make it a bit more dynamic. And so these variables here are no longer, just available within the build calendar, but it's available in the whole class. That's that. I'm going to end that video here, because in the next video what we're going to do is we're actually going to start to take some of this information and reorganize it so that we can easily clear and recreate or restructure information, and that's how you make it a bit more dynamic. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it was useful. Do subscribe and like, and happy coding.